Hello, welcome to Daniel Bayon's Body Slamming Part 2, or Body Slamming Part 2 with Daniel Bayon. And this is your host, Daniel Bayon. I don't know why, but I always do this because I want to lay the groundwork on what my podcast is about. So, my podcast is about, because I didn't want to talk about TV shows because there's no, or TV show episodes because there's no real life story to go with it. Excuse me for a second. But what I can do, and what I do like doing, I spoke about having archived shows, about the archived shows that are on the WWE Network, and how a lot of them, there's a lot of shows or videos that have not made it to the network yet, and I got a feeling a lot of that, not just because of the video library not being available yet, but it's because of them not doing a collection on some wrestlers yet. Like, they just did a collection on Ted DiBiase Sr., and if they wouldn't have a large portion of the Mid-South Library available, then they wouldn't have been able to do that collection on him. I don't know why they don't have any of their rock and wrestling shows available yet. But I've got a feeling they're going to start adding some of those shows to the network soon. If not, then they're going to start adding video libraries that we didn't even think they would add. Like, they just purchased the Puerto Rican video library, which may be rated MA for mature audiences. Simply put, there's too much blood to keep it under the PG logo. So that's why that's why the only way to watch that for a lot of people simply put there's a lot of video libraries that they could purchase out there, and there's a lot of videos that don't follow the PG programming views, and they might have to spend a lot of money not only to add that to the network in the near future, but they're going to have to spend a lot of money to air a PSA type video where it says viewer discretion is advised. They might have to spend a lot of money to do that for a lot of the network subscribers. They also recently had a meeting with Scott D'Amore and some other members of Impact Wrestling, where there's a possibility of adding their TV show episodes from 2003, I believe, was when they started. 2004. A lot of shows that they might add from Impact, or shows that I personally have always wanted to see, because after I really got really excited about Impact, all of a sudden they took them off of Fox Sports Net, I believe. which was FSN at the time. All of a sudden, they took them off, and I didn't see them on TV again for another year. That's when they first went to Spike TV, now known as Paramount Network. So there's a lot of videos that we're gonna possibly be seeing soon added onto the network. But to start off with, I'd have to say that Memphis Wrestling have to be at the top of the list because of how far back it goes. Especially if they want to do a Jerry Lawler collection. And for myself personally, one video library I started talking about, but I couldn't continue because they didn't have. They had a lot of episodes, but not a lot of full years. And a lot of full year ends in the tape library, and that was Mid-South Wrestling. At first, all they had were possibly first 4 episodes, but they never had full years, so I'm going to check, but I don't believe that it's changed. I don't believe that that they have any full year full year episodes of Mid-South added. So that's what I'm gonna be looking at, because of the fact that it is so long ago. I'm gonna have to keep my eyes on that. Let's see. Okay, they don't have a lot of episodes in 86, or they, to be honest with you, that's why I'm gonna go back as far as I can. 1981, so far it only has, say, 4 episodes in it, and that was in December. Matter of fact, yesterday was the 2018. So yesterday was the 37th year anniversary of the second episode of Mid-South. So that would go to 1982. Let's see how far that went. Wow. 82 has a lot of episodes available. So, yeah. The first state, of course, that they covered was in my home state of Louisiana. And not only did my dad and my mom's brother watch it on TV, one watched it in Ville Platte, the other one watched it right here in my home city, hometown of Eunice, Louisiana. But they recorded in Shreveport. And they did a lot of house shows here in Louisiana, like a city called Bunkie. I remember Nature Boy Buddy Landell said on his way to a show in Bunkie, he actually got in a wreck and lost his eye, and he had to go to the hospital, sew his eye back in, and then he went to the show after that. So, yeah, that's what's really amazing. But what's interesting about this is it's those, quote, territories that Vince McMahon didn't like being a part of. But showing how great it is, one time they had Jerry Lawler in there representing Memphis, and then you had another time, I think the Road Warriors were representing AWA, because that's where they started. Dusty Rhodes was there a lot. I'm not really sure why. What I mean by that is, I don't know. I know that he spent most of his time in Florida bookings, and then booking for booking for places like the Crockett Promotion, but I don't know why else he was here. I know one thing though. I'm using Body Slam in Part 1 to talk about the Monday Night Ratings War. So every week, while I talk about Mid-South on here, the other one I'll be talking about the Monday Night Raw versus Monday Nitro, because I do a comparison of the two shows. And NXT, for people who are subscribed to the WWE network, I remember my uncle used to always tell me about how Mid-South had the North American title. So I'm not really sure what the purpose is, but I do remember, however, thinking how that's probably I thought because it was Mid-South and the heavyweight title was supposed to be for, like, say, the not just the top draw, not just the biggest draw of the company, but they usually had a heavyweight title contender because of that. So I thought how interesting it was that they didn't call it heavyweight, that they called it North American. That way they wouldn't be thought of in the same category as the NWA title, which I thought was smart, because they would have ruined the credibility of the NWA title. So that's another thing they could bring. No, there's so many possibilities of what to watch. No, if you do a podcast like I do and you want to talk about old shows, so many different things we're looking at. Okay. So the purpose of this was to talk about all the shows I want to talk about. It's also to talk about, what else can I talk about? And I believe I got my answer in the collections. If I don't want to do a long episode, or if I really don't know what the purpose of the episode is for that time, for that time era, then I can do a collection episode covering, like, for instance, in this case, Ted DiBiase. But I will talk about the shows, because that's what I love to do. And I believe that talking about shows like Clash of the Champions and actually that might be the only other thing to talk about, but talking about the series, like how long the ratings war lasted and what happened after the war was over, what they led into, things of that nature, I would keep on the first Body Slamming show. And I'm glad I decided to do this, because it really does give me something to talk about outside of something I grew up with. I mean, there were a lot of shows, and a lot of people, I probably won't understand this, but there were a lot of shows I did not see growing up because of the Attitude Era. Like, only knew about Triple H and Stephanie because of my best friend watching WWF. as it was called at the time. So that's a lot of reasons why it was not a big deal to me not to watch this, because I had a friend who did watch, so I would find out from him what was happening. However, looking back at it, I don't really have a lot of stories to tell about it, because I don't really remember a lot of stories word for word, so that's why I look back at it. And really, to be honest with you, when you took out Goldust, the character Goldust, or the artist formerly known as Goldust, as he called himself, when you took that character out, if Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't talking and all he was doing was just doing things like fighting people or filling Vince's car with cement or whatever the case it was, when that first started, it was not good to see, because Vince was just a regular commentator and he was not a villain. Because of Steve Austin hitting him, because that was part of the character development, was to have him show like he just didn't care. That's why, even though it was popular, it wasn't good, because even though Vince became a villain later on, because he wasn't a villain, that's why if people know that you're going against the real life boss, if he did not do anything to warrant it, then you're just coming off like a bully, and you cannot bully a boss and get away with it. So, number one, it made kids think it was okay to come against authority. That's the number one reason it was wrong. The second reason it was wrong was because since kids tend to believe what they see on TV is how life really is, you cannot show that on something that a kid is going to watch. You want to set a good example, not a bad. When Bill Watts was... Anytime Bill Watts in Mid-South was assaulted, they would always have his kids come on TV and say how they felt about it, and you felt empathy for Bill Watts. Or a better way of saying that is, when he was assaulted by the talent, like one time his tag team known as the Midnight Express, or his contracted tag team, managed by Jim Cornette, one time they assaulted him, and to show the difference between that era and the era they were entering into, the crowd just, instead of cheering, you could tell they were not pleased, and they had, show you another difference between the two eras. They had about 10 guys, all were babyfaces, came out to help Bill Watts up. And the next week, Silver spoke about how horrible it was. This time around, when that happened with Vince, nobody did that before. That's how you know it was a different time. Nobody ever acknowledged that Vince was the boss. But Bret Hart started to do it after Steve Austin did it. So, after a while, it became like, what are we gonna do? And then in say 97, late 97, after Survivor Series, that's why Vince McMahon started to, he actually what became known as the heel Mr. McMahon character. He was that way in Memphis wrestling in the 1970s. Then in, like, say, 86, 87, no, 84, 85, he bought a time slot on WTBS, and where it could be shown on the same channel and the same product as WCW, or as a matter of fact, they were called WCW before WCW was even the name of the company for the Crockett promotion. And it's really amazing because when he went on WTBS and he brought all his men on there, which it had such a low rating, I believe, that, or it looked so bad to Ted Turner that he automatically went to Jim Crockett Jr. Jim Crockett Jr. went to Vince and asked him, how much do you want for the old time slot that I want to purchase from you? And just in that, you could see that he was not being a villain. But in Memphis he was, and it's just interesting to know the difference. Okay. Now, I know that y'all are used to sound effects, and I love sound effects myself, but I don't have sound effects you hear on Jim Ross Report or Busted Open Radio. I don't have anything like that. So, this chair is the only thing that I have, one of the only things I have as a sound effect. And then there's another sound effect right here, which is just 3 seconds longer. And I never played it before that I can remember. So I'm going to play it again just to know what the sound effect is. Alright. Okay. After I finished recording this, I'm going to try to see what those two sounds are, and I'll try to play those before I even say hello. They have a picture with sunglasses. I'll play that too. Hold on. There's a bell. I don't know what that stands for, so I'll hit it. Okay, good. Okay, so I really don't know. I mean, I like talking about collections, and I like talking about other shows, but not for a podcast. I mean, I can talk about collections, but not for the show because I have so much more to talk about than just collections. However, I do like watching collections. So yeah, I'll start talking about Mid-South Wrestling or any weekend videos that the WWE produced in the 90s that I can find on YouTube. I'll try to talk about as much of those videos as I can. Alright. Thank y'all and goodbye.